Rain struck the metal roof of the cabin like tiny hammers from the sky. Deep in the forest of Theta 6, there was silence except for the sound of water dripping and the heavy breaths of a sleeping dog. He was large, scarred from old fights, and loyal to one man, Elias Dorn, a human engineer who had chosen to live away from all the noise of the galaxy. Elias had seen too much in the war. He didn't trust people anymore, alien or human, but his dog Rust never left his side. Together, they lived in peace until that strange night. Rust's ears perked up. His nose twitched. Something wasn't right. He stood, growling low, and patted out the open doorway into the darkness. The rain hit his thick fur, but he didn't care. He sniffed again. Blood. Fear. Something dying. Not an animal. Not human either. Rust bolted into the trees. Elias stirred from his bunk, reaching for the blaster under his pillow. "Rust?" he called, stepping into his boots. No answer. The dog never left the perimeter unless it was serious. Grabbing a light and his coat, Elias followed the tracks. 100 meters out, he found Rust growling near a bush, tail stiff, fur bristling. Something was curled beneath the leaves. At first, Elias thought it was some kind of animal, but then it moved, and he saw slender fingers, silver skin, and deep wounds glowing faintly under the rain. It was a girl. An alien girl, young, barely alive. Her clothes were torn, soaked in her own blood. Her eyes fluttered open, and she tried to speak, but only coughed up black liquid. Rust whined and nudged her carefully with his nose. Elias looked around the forest. Heart pounding. Who was she? Where did she come from? And why was she alone? There were no ships in the sky. No rescue beacons. No signs of a crash. Nothing. Still, something in her weak gaze made him act fast. Elias scooped her up. She was light as feathers and rushed back to the cabin. She groaned once in pain, but passed out before they reached the door. He laid her on the med table, wiped away the dirt and blood, and activated the old field scanner. The display flickered to life. Species: unknown. Vitals: failing. Toxins in bloodstream: 68%. Fractures: multiple. She had no ID tag, no cum chip, nothing. Elias cursed under his breath and reached for his surgical kit. "Rust water," he ordered. Dog barked once and ran to fetch the canister from the purifier. Elias had done field surgery before on soldiers, on mercs, but this was different. Her blood smelled strange, not like anything he knew. It hissed slightly as it touched air. She trembled as he injected a stabilizer. Her chest rose and fell in short, weak gasps as Elias stitched her wounds and sealed them with nanogel. His mind spun with questions. Who was she running from? Why was she left to die in the middle of nowhere? And why was he, a man who had given up on helping others, trying so hard to keep this alien girl alive? By dawn, her breathing had steadied. She was still unconscious, but her body no longer shook. Her skin glowed faintly now, as if recovering energy. Elias sat down, wiped sweat from his brow, and looked at Rust, who lay by her side like a silent guardian. The dog's eyes never left her. Hours passed. She woke with a soft gasp. Her eyes, bright violet, filled with confusion and fear, looked around the room. Then they locked onto Elias. She tensed, tried to move, and cried out in pain. "Easy," Elias said, raising his hands. "You're safe now." She blinked. Her mouth opened, but her voice was weak. Her words made no sense, clicks and hums in a language he didn't know. Rust whined and licked her fingers gently. She flinched at first, then smiled weakly. It was the first sign of peace she had shown. Elias sighed. "Yeah, I'm confused too." He stood and poured some nutrient broth into a cup. "Let's see if you can drink." She reached slowly, hands shaking, and sipped. Her body relaxed a bit more. Suddenly, the scanner beeped. Elias looked at the screen. It was detecting a signal, an encrypted one coming from her body. She wasn't just some lost alien girl. She had a tracker embedded inside her chest, and someone was already searching. Rust growled again. Elias reached for his blaster. This wasn't over. Something was coming, and it wasn't friendly. Asterisk. The signal pulsed softly from the tracker inside the alien girl's chest. Elias watched the screen as lines of data streamed across it, encrypted, layered, military grade. Whoever had embedded that device didn't want her found by just anyone. But it also meant someone dangerous was looking for her. He turned back to the girl. Her breathing had steadied, and her strange violet eyes watched him with quiet intensity. She didn't speak, but her gaze seemed to plead for something understanding, maybe, or trust. Elias stood slowly, hands in view. "I don't know who you are," he said, "but someone's hunting you, and now they might be coming here." She tilted her head at the word hunting. A flicker of fear crossed her face. Rust let out a low growl and stood beside the door, his nose twitching. He could sense it too. Something was wrong out there. In the trees, Elias walked to the panel beside the cabin's entrance and activated the security field. Blue light shimmered around the building like a dome. It wouldn't stop heavy artillery, but it would keep scouts and drones from getting close without warning. He looked back at her. "You need to tell me something. Anything." She slowly raised her trembling hand and touched her chest, near her heart. Then she pressed her palm flat against the med scanner and winced. The screen flared. A new line of code appeared, handwritten. Commands overriding the encryption. What the hell? Elias leaned in. Suddenly the signal reversed. Whoever had been tracking her just got blocked. The screen flashed red. Warning. Encryption. Jammed from internal source. Self-erasure in progress. The tracker was wiping itself. Elias watched as the signal vanished. You did that?" She gave a tiny nod, then collapsed. Back into the cushions, exhausted. Elias ran a scan again. No beacon, no transmission. She'd killed her own tracker somehow. Using his equipment. Rust barked sharply. The external sensors pinged. Movement. 1, 2, no 3 shapes approaching. Fast, not on foot. Gliders. Silent. Elias grabbed his rifle and tossed a blaster toward the girl, placing it beside her. "If you can move, be ready." She looked at the weapon, confused, then shook her head slowly. She had no strength left. Her limbs barely moved. He cursed under his breath and bolted to the reinforced window. The trees rustled. Leaves spun in. A circle as something landed, something sleek, black and deadly. A glider hovered low, anti-grav pads buzzing softly. 2 tall figures stepped out, wearing armor like none Elias had ever seen. Their faces were hidden behind insect-like masks. They moved with trained precision soldiers, or worse. Rust growled louder now, teeth bared. Elias whispered, "Easy, boy. We're not starting the fight yet." The figure scanned the area. One turned its mask toward the cabin. Its voice crackled. Through a translator. "We detected a beacon in this region. Return the asset. You will not be harmed." Elias didn't answer. He kept the blaster close and let the silence grow heavy. The second soldier stepped forward. "We know the asset is here. Do not resist. This is your only warning." Inside, the girl tried to sit up again. She looked terrified. Rust barked and Elias had to hold him back. "I don't care who you are," Elias shouted through the door, "but this is my land, and that girl isn't going anywhere with you." Silence. Then a hum. The first soldier raised a weapon, a sleek black cannon attached to his forearm. "Then you have chosen violence." Elias dove to the side as the front of the cabin exploded. The shield held but barely, wood shattered. Flames burst from the doorway. Rust jumped in front of the girl. barking wildly. LAS fired through the opening, hitting one of the gliders. Supports. It sparked and spun, crashing into a tree. One soldier ducked for cover, but the other advanced. A beam of energy slammed into the shield, once, twice weakening it. Elias rolled across the floor and yanked open the hidden panel under the table, revealing an old pulse mine. He looked at the girl. "If this doesn't work, we run." She nodded weakly. He threw the mine. It landed between the soldiers and exploded in a flash of blue light, sending a shockwave through the trees. Both attackers fell to the ground, stunned. Rust barked triumphantly, but Elias didn't relax. Where? There were two? More would come. He rushed to the girl, scooping her up again. She tried to speak something urgent, but the words broke into gasps. Rust led the way through the back tunnel hidden beneath the cabin. As they disappeared into the forest shadows, smoke rising behind them, Elias whispered, "I don't know who you are, girl, but someone really wants you dead." And he had a feeling he was only just beginning to find out why. Asterisk. Elias moved fast through the narrow escape tunnel beneath the forest floor, his boots splashing in shallow water. The girl was still unconscious in his arms, her head resting against his shoulder. Rust ran ahead, ears up, alert for danger. The tunnel was an old mining route, long forgotten and mostly collapsed. But Elias had reinforced this part years ago, just in case someone came looking for trouble. Now, trouble had arrived. He reached the old hatch at the end of the tunnel, shoved it open, and stepped out into the fog-covered ravine. Massive trees towered above them, and thick vines dangled like silent guardians. Birds scattered as he emerged, and for a moment, everything was quiet again. Elias laid the girl down gently on a moss-covered rock. She stirred, blinking up at the pale sky above the canopy. "You're alive," he muttered. "We're alive," she coughed, her voice barely a whisper. "They were not supposed to find me." "You're gonna have to explain what that means," Elias said, checking the scanner again. "Because they almost leveled my home to ash." She looked away, pain flashing across her face. "I escaped from a ship, prison, lab." Elias froze. Prison lab. The words made his stomach tighten. "You were a test subject?" She nodded slowly. "They called me Subject 12. I was their prototype, but I ran. I broke the stasis lock and jumped." "You jumped? From orbit?" Elias blinked. "No wonder you nearly died." She gave a weak smile. "I was ready to die." "But your animal, he found me." Rust sat proudly beside her and wagged his tail as if he understood. "What were they testing on you?" Elias asked. Her hand trembled as she reached to the side of her neck where a faint mark glowed under her skin. "Energy core. Inside me. It grows. They wanted to weaponize it." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Wait, there's a living energy source inside your body?" "Yes," she whispered. "But it's unstable. They were trying to control it. They failed." Elias backed up slightly, scanning her chest again. The reading showed a slow but increasing power level near her heart. "That's why they want you back." She nodded again. "If I lose control, I could destroy a city. Or more." Elias rubbed his face. "So I'm sitting next to a living bomb." She looked ashamed, but didn't speak. Rust gave a soft whine and pressed his nose against her cheek, comforting her. Elias sighed. "Okay, look, you're not exploding on my watch. I'll figure something out." He looked at her closely. "Do you have a name?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Kayla." "All right, Kayla. You're not Subject 12 anymore." They rested in the ravine for hours as Kayla slowly regained strength. Elias gave her water and warm food paste, and she ate slowly but gratefully. He watched her closely, her movements, her expressions, the glow under her skin. There was something human. In her eyes, not just survival, but guilt, regret, a sense of shame that she was made into something she didn't ask to be. Later, Elias took out a device and connected it to his wrist pad. This uplink taps into the old galactic relay. I can send a signal. Out, see if there's anyone who can help stabilize that thing inside you. Kayla gripped his arm. No messages. They will trace. Elias nodded. All right, then we do it the hard way. We find the source files, the lab specs. If we understand how they built it, we can disable it. Kayla frowned. The ship I escaped from is crashed nearby in the jungle ridge. You crashed it? Elias asked. I overrode the AI. Didn't know how to fly. Just aimed it down. Lucky you survived. She smiled slightly. Unlucky they survived too. Elias stood. Then, we need to reach that wreck. Maybe the ship's logs can give us a way to neutralize the core. Kayla tried to stand but stumbled. Elias caught her. I'll carry you, he said. Russ knows the jungle better than anyone. As the group moved deeper into the misty forest, Elias felt the tension return. He was guiding a living weapon through wild terrain, with hunters close behind. The girl had more than just data inside her. She was the key to a secret. Someone was willing to kill entire villages to keep hidden Dot as they hiked toward the ridge. The trees grew darker and thicker. Rust barked once quiet. And sharp Dot Elias froze. He looked up. A red laser dot danced across his chest. They had been found, but before the sniper could fire, Kella's eyes flared bright, and in a flash of light, the laser blinked out. Somewhere in the trees, something screamed, and silence returned. Elias looked at Kayla, stunned that she was breathing hard. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to. It just happened. He looked ahead into the jungle. This power inside you. It's waking up, isn't it? Kayla didn't answer. She didn't need to. Asterisk, the jungle ridge loomed ahead. A jagged cliff swallowed by thick mist and towering alien trees. Massive roots tangled like giant snakes, twisting between sharp rocks. Strange bird-like creatures screeched in the canopy above, but Elias wasn't distracted. His eyes were fixed on the distant shape hidden halfway up the ridge, a shattered, metallic frame speared through with vines and broken glass. The crashed ship, Kella's prison. Rust led the way carefully, sniffing the ground and scanning the wind. Kayla leaned on Elias, her step still shaky but stronger than before. Her breathing was uneven, and her skin pulsed faintly with light, as if the energy inside her stirred with each heartbeat. Elias glanced at her. You okay? I will be, she said softly. Just need to stay calm. Emotion makes it worse. Elias nodded, remembering how that sniper had disappeared in a burst of invisible energy. She hadn't meant to do it, but it had still happened. They reached the base of the wreck. The ship had crashed nose first into the side of the ridge and split down the center. Pieces of metal hung loosely from branches like skeletons of some ancient machine. Smoke no longer rose, but the air still smelled of burnt circuits and melted plastic. Elias climbed first, helping Kayla over each sharp obstacle. As they reached the main fuselage, a broken hatch hung open, revealing the dark corridor inside. The interior was scorched, blackened by fire and impact, but it still held power-dim emergency lights flickered on as they entered. This is it, Kayla whispered, her voice trembling. I woke here. My cage was back there. They moved deeper into the wreckage. Rust growled quietly but didn't bark. Elias found the main control panel. He connected his wrist pad and pulled up the data logs. Got something, he said. Medical experiments, logs, stasis reports. Subject 12. That's you. Kayla looked away, ashamed. I'm wiping all of it, Elias said. You're not their subject anymore. She said nothing, but he could see her jaw tighten. A mixture of relief and pain. Suddenly, a loud clank echoed from deeper inside the ship. Elias drew his blaster and looked at Rust. The dog had already moved ahead. Ears perked. Then came footsteps, slow, heavy, metallic. "Stay behind me, Elias," said. They moved cautiously into the lab chamber, which still held shattered tanks filled with cloudy liquid. One was broken open, Kellis, but beside it, another pod still glowed. A body floated inside. Another experiment. Before Elias could react, a machine rose from the shadows, a Guardian bot, damaged but functional. Its sensor flared red as it scanned Elias. Unauthorized presence. Purge mode. Active. Elias shot first, striking its left arm, sending sparks flying. The bot spun and fired a stun bolt. Elias dodged and Rust leaped onto the bot's leg, biting and pulling. Kayla stepped forward, eyes glowing. "No!" She raised her hand and the air crackled. The bot froze. Its limbs trembled violently, circuits screaming. Kayla clenched her fist. The machine imploded in on itself with a sudden crunch and collapsed, dead. Elias stared. That wasn't panic. "You controlled that." Kella's hand shook and she staggered. "I didn't know I could. I just focused." He helped her sit. "You're learning to use it," she nodded, "but it drains me." They turned to the floating body in the second tank. Elias wiped the glass clean. It was another girl, same species. "Same markings." Kaela gasped. "She was before me. Subject 11. I thought she died." The tank's life signs blinked weakly. She was still alive. Elias worked fast, bypassing the lock. The tank hissed open. He caught the girl before she fell, laying her gently on the floor. Kayla held her hand. "Lyra," she whispered. The girl stirred but didn't wake. "We can't carry both," Elias said. "Not through this jungle, not with hunters on our tail." Kayla's voice was quiet but steady. "We're not leaving her." Elias looked at her, then at the ruined chamber. "There's a hover lift in the back, if it still works." He sprinted toward the storage bay, hoping. Rust followed close. To his surprise, the lift was there, bent and half buried in rubble, but its battery held a charge. He dragged it back, placed Lyra gently on top, and secured her with cables. Kayla climbed beside her. Elias looked around. "If we're moving, we go now." But just as they exited the wreck, a low whir filled the air. Above them, a new ship descended, sleek, black, silent. The real hunters had arrived. Kayla looked up. "Those aren't scouts," she said, her face pale. "That's command." Elias aimed his rifle. Rust growled, stepping forward. Kayla whispered, "They won't take us alive." Elias glanced at her. "Then let's make sure they don't take us at all." The black ship hovered above them, silent like a predator in the sky. Its underbelly opened slowly, revealing 6 figures in dark armor descending on grav struts. Their movements were smooth, efficient, practiced. These weren't bounty hunters or random mercenaries. These were command-level enforcers, elite recovery agents trained to retrieve high-value assets, dead or alive. Kayla gripped the edge of the hoverlift tightly, shielding Lyra's unconscious body with her own. Her breathing grew shaky. The glowing veins on her skin pulsed faster. Elias raised his blaster and backed toward the jungle's edge. "If you can't run, then stay behind me." Kayla's voice was tense. "If I tried to use the energy again, I might lose control." Elias nodded. "Then don't. Not unless you have no choice." Rust snarled, standing his ground between them and the descending soldiers. The enforcers landed in a wide arc. Surrounding them, one of them stepped forward, helmet gleaming. "Return the subject," he said in a calm, flat voice. "You are interfering in a classified operation." Elias didn't flinch. She's a living being, not a science experiment. She is a weapon. And that one, the soldier pointed at Lyra, is a failed prototype. Kayla stood slowly. We're not weapons. We didn't choose this. You don't have to choose, said the soldier. You belong to the project. And the project does not forget its property. Elias fired first. The shot hit the enforcer's shoulder, forcing him back. Chaos erupted instantly. Rust launched into a sprint, leaping at one of the agents and knocking him down. Elias rolled to cover behind a fallen tree and fired again. Kayla ducked as stunned. Rounds sizzled past her. She held on to Lyra tightly, shielding her with her own body. One of the enforcers raised an electric net gun, but before he could fire, Kayla looked up, eyes glowing bright white. The air shimmered. A sudden pulse exploded. Outward from her chest like a wave. All electronics within 10 meters shorted out. The agents' visors flickered. Their suits sparked. Elias' blaster died in his hand. Rust yelped and jumped back, confused by the electric surge. The enforcers staggered, trying to reboot their systems. Kayla collapsed to her knees, blood trickling from her nose. I can't do more. Elias dropped the useless weapon and ran forward, slamming his fist into one of the stunned agents. Rust followed, biting hard into another's leg. The fight turned brutal and messy. Kayla watched, barely able to breathe. The energy had drained her too fast. Then, above them, the ship's hull glowed. A new threat descended, a drone larger, armed with plasma cannons, and scanning for targets. Elias dove for cover as it locked onto his heat signature. The drone fired. The ground erupted, throwing Elias backward. Kayla screamed. Rust jumped in front of Elias's body, barking wildly as the drone recalibrated. Kayla struggled to her feet, hands trembling. The drone's cannon hummed, charging again. Something in her snapped. Her fear, her pain, her guilt, all of it crashed into one sharp moment. She stepped forward and raised both hands. A beam of light exploded from her palms, not chaotic like before, but focused, steady. It hit the drone mid-air. The drone systems overloaded. Instantly, the machine spun violently and burst into flames, crashing into the jungle in a ball of fire. Kayla collapsed. Elias crawled to her. Kayla! She was breathing barely. I'm okay, she whispered. Lyra moaned faintly from the hoverlift. She was waking. Elias looked around. 2 of the enforcers were down. 3 others were recovering. He couldn't stay here. He grabbed the hoverlift rope and pulled with everything he had, dragging both girls deeper into the jungle. Rust limped beside him, burned but alive. The jungle swallowed them again. They didn't stop for miles. They finally reached a hidden cave Elias had discovered years ago. It was small, dry, and shielded from satellite scans thanks to the iron-rich rock around it. Inside, he laid both girls down and collapsed beside them. Kayla opened her eyes slowly. Did we make it? For now, Elias replied. But they'll come again. Lyra sat up weakly, blinking at Kayla. You? Found me? Kayla smiled through her exhaustion. I never stopped looking. Elias leaned back and stared. At the cave ceiling, he had been a simple engineer, a loner, a man running from a broken past. Now, he had become something else. Protector, fighter, friend, and possibly the only thing standing between 2 broken girls, and the full force of a ruthless galactic project. But for tonight, they were safe. Tomorrow would bring war. Asterisk rain returned to the jungle that night, tapping softly on the leaves above the hidden cave. Elias sat by the entrance, rifle across his lap, eyes scanning the shadows. Rust lay beside him, tail twitching in his sleep. Inside, Kayla and Lyra rested on makeshift bedding. Lyra still looked fragile, but she was recovering fast thanks to Kayla's stabilizing energy. Elias couldn't sleep. The events of the last 2 days spun around his mind like a storm. He had no idea how far the project's reach was, but it was clear they wouldn't stop. Not now. Not after Kayla had revealed her full potential. He looked back at the cave's interior, watching the two girls breathe. Both had been forced into weapons. But they weren't weapons now. They were survivors. Kayla stirred. She sat up slowly, blinking through the dim light. "You're still awake," Elias nodded. "Couldn't sleep. Thought maybe I'd wake up and realize this is all a dream." Kayla offered a tired smile. "I wish it was." "Do you feel stable now?" he asked, keeping his voice low. "Better," she said. "But the core inside me, it's changing, adapting. I think it bonded to me during the crash." "Is that a good thing?" Kayla looked down at her glowing palms. "I don't know." Elias studied her face. There was fear there, but something else too. Strength. "Lyra said the project tried to drain your energy into others," he said. "That's why they kept you alive." Kayla nodded. "I was the power source. They used machines to force my energy into other prototypes. None of them survived. Except Lyra. But even she wasn't stable until I touched her." "Maybe I'm the key." "To what?" Elias asked. "To destroying the project." A branch snapped outside. Elias raised his rifle instantly. Rust stood up and growled, ears perked. Kayla crawled to the cave entrance beside him. From the trees, a tall figure stepped into view, unarmed, unarmored, and wearing a dark cloak soaked from the rain. He lifted his hand slowly to show he carried no weapon. "I am not your enemy," he said calmly. Elias didn't lower his gun. "Then you picked a very stupid time to wander this far." "I'm a deserter," the man said. "I worked for the project. I helped build what they put inside her." Kayla froze. The man stepped forward carefully. "I'm not proud of what I did. That's why I ran. And that's why I came looking for you." Elias narrowed his eyes. "You expect us to believe that?" "I expect nothing," the man replied. "But if you want to save her, you'll need me." Kayla stood. "How do we know you're not leading them to us?" He reached into his cloak slowly and tossed a small object at Elias's feet. It was a military-grade ID chip. Elias scanned it with his wrist pad. Name, Varric Sol. Rank, Lead Systems Biotech, Omega Division. Status, missing, presumed dead. Kayla's voice was quiet. "I remember your face. You were there when they activated the core." Varric nodded. "And I was the one who shut down the kill switch when you escaped." Elias asked, "Why?" Varric looked at Kayla. "Because I realized you were never the monster. They were." There was a long silence. Then Kayla stepped forward. "Can you remove it?" "The core?" Varric hesitated. "Not completely. It's fused to your cellular structure now, but I can stabilize it. Make sure it never detonates, never drains you again." Elias lowered his rifle, but just slightly. "And what do you want?" "In return?" Varric exhaled. "To make things right." Kayla exchanged a look with Elias. He sighed. "We give him a chance." One chance. They let Varric enter the cave. He knelt beside Kayla, pulled out a small device from his pack, and began scanning her vitals. The screen flickered with complex code. "You're already stronger than before," he said. "Your body has adapted, but the power is unstable, volatile." "Tell me something I don't know," Kayla said. Varric looked up. "There's a secondary protocol buried deep in the core. A pulse failsafe. If they can't retrieve you, they'll try to detonate it remotely." Elias clenched his fists. "Then we don't have time. I can reprogram it," Varric said. "But I need access to their command servers." Kayla asked, "Where?" Varric's answer made them all go silent. "The project's main base," he said. "Deep beneath the Omega Expanse, protected by a fleet, shielded by ancient alien tech." Elias rubbed his face. "You're telling us we have to break into the most secure place in the galaxy, just to stop this thing from killing her?" "Yes," Varric said. "It's suicide," Kayla stood, a new light in her eyes. "Then we better get started." And for the first time since she fell into that forest, Elias saw it in her true fire. She wasn't running anymore. She was ready to fight. The journey to the Omega Expanse was like crossing a graveyard of stars. Elias flew the stolen transport ship with hands steady, but every light on the dashboard reminded him how fragile their window was. One wrong signal, one wrong move, and the project's orbiting defenses would reduce them to ash. Kayla sat beside him, dressed in patched combat gear. Her skin glowed faintly, now not flickering in pain, but humming with control. Lyra stayed in the back of the ship, monitoring power levels with Varric, who tapped nonstop into the encrypted console. Rest. Curled beside her, head resting on her lap. "We're approaching the cloud cover," Elias said. "They won't see us through the ion fog until we're right above their base." Varric looked up. "We have one shot. If I can connect to the internal systems and upload the rewriter code, we can disarm the core and erase their data permanently." "And if they stop us?" Elias asked. Kayla answered without blinking. "Then I make sure none of them walk out either." The ship broke through the clouds. Beneath them, a massive crater stretched for miles, cloaked in fog. At its center was the project's true headquarters, an underground fortress with towers. Rising from the stone, covered in black alloy and blinking with sensor lights. No open hangars, no flight paths. Just one vertical access shaft drilled into the earth. Elias steered straight toward it. Alarms blared. "They see us," Kayla said, already strapping herself in. "Brace!" Elias shouted. Anti-air turrets rose from the rock and fired. He twisted the ship hard. Plasma fire sliced across their left wing, but they made it. With a deafening roar, the ship slammed into the access shaft and scraped its way down into the black heart of the base. The ship finally crashed into the hangar bay with a grinding screech of metal. Everything went still. Smoke poured into the cabin. Sparks flew. Elias kicked the side door open, coughing. "Everyone out." Kayla and Lyra jumped down. Rust barked and followed, fur singed but determined. Varric held a blinking pad. "Server room down the main corridor, 5th chamber left." They ran. The base shook. Sirens screamed. Enforcers came rushing in, weapons raised, but Kayla stepped forward, her arms glowing like suns. The first blast was clean, non-lethal, but powerful enough to blow them backward. The next wave tried to surround them, but Lyra took a blaster and covered the hallway. Rust tore into one soldier's leg. Elias fired at the lock panel, and the door to the server room burst open. Varric raced to the core terminal and connected. His device. "I'm in, starting code injection." A deep, cold voice came through the base's intercom. "You've come far, Subject 12, but you will not leave." Kella's fists clenched. A wall slid open and a massive armored figure stepped through. Not just a soldier, but a fusion of machine and biology. His armor crackled with Kala's energy signature. "That's the Warden," Varric whispered. "They made him from failed attempts to control her power." The Warden spoke with a voice of stone. "You were never meant to survive." "Let me correct that mistake." Kayla stepped forward. "Then come try." He charged. Their battle cracked the air. Kayla's energy flared, matching the Warden blow for blow. But he absorbed some of it, his armor reflecting her strikes. She was strong, but he had been made for her. Elias tried to help, but his blaster shots bounced off. Lyra screamed, "Varric, faster!" "I'm trying," he shouted. Almost done. Kayla was knocked back, crashing into a pillar. Her glow flickered. The warden raised his blade to finish her, but Rust lunged. He bit into the warden's arm and pulled, just enough to knock the aim off. The blade hit the ground beside Kaela. She rose, eyes burning white. The ground shook as Kayla unleashed everything, not in rage, but with purpose. Her light turned golden, her pulse steady. She struck the warden straight in the core. His armor shattered. The energy inside him exploded, and he was gone. The room fell silent. Varric shouted, "It's done! Core failsafe erased. Project files gone. It's over." Kayla dropped to her knees. Elias caught her before she fell. She smiled weakly. "I did it. We did it." Outside, alarms faded. Inside, the last of the project's shadow had fallen. They left the base quietly, walking through the ruins of everything that had once controlled her life. Elias looked at Kayla. "So, what now?" Kayla looked at the sunrise through the clouds. "I think I want to live." She reached for his hand and took it gently. Lara smiled. Rust barked once, tail wagging. And for the first time in years, Elias smiled too. They had survived together. And for all of them, man, dog and alien girls alike, this was the beginning of something new.